as I'm talking to you about the way that I deal with anxiety, most of you are veterans. You've been doing this for a long time. I ask you to keep an open mind. Much of what I say may be different than what you have heard or how you practice. If you are dealing with a school, it is absolutely different than the way that schools are dealing with anxiety. Absolutely different. So as I'm talking, this is the question that I want you to ask yourself. Are you, as the clinician, as the therapist, doing the disorder? Are you giving the cult leader what it wants? When you are sitting with a family, when you are sitting with a child, are you trying to meet the needs of the anxiety rather than teach skills that help us move away from it? These are the skills that I'm talking about. If I had to make a list of the skills that I am trying to teach anxious families, this is the list of skills. Remember, they're lousy at tolerating uncertainty. This is a very cognitively rigid disorder. It's a very cognitively rigid framework, right? Things have to be a certain way. Tomorrow we're going to talk a lot about OCD. Very rigid. In order for me to get through the day, I need to know exactly what's going to happen. There are several books written about dealing with anxiety in schools. People give them to me. I look at them. One of the things that the books often say, that the authors often talk about, is that if you have a worried child in your classroom, if you have an anxious child, that it is imperative that you have a calm, organized, predictable classroom. And the anxiety disorder says, thank you so much for giving me what I need. Now, I am not saying that classrooms should be chaotic and disorganized and unpredictable. But the more that we try and make sure that we keep the train on the tracks for these kids, the more that we are buying into what the disorder is demanding. If we think about prevention of anxiety and depression are sort of like the Olsen twins. Remember the Olsen twins, Mary Kate and Ashley? Right? We thought that they were identical twins, didn't we? During the Full House years. And then they grew up and we realized, oh my gosh, they're not identical twins. They just look a lot alike. That's the same with anxiety and depression when we're talking about prevention and treatment. If you are in a setting in which you are able to talk prevention, in which you are able to talk to anxious parents when their kids are really little, if you are able to go into school settings where they are dealing with preschoolers and kindergartners, and you are able to start talking about how we teach these skills preemptively, front-loading, then we're going to get somewhere. Unfortunately, the message that kids are getting, particularly teenagers, is the exact opposite of prevention. It's really not a prevention message these days. It's a disease message. It's an illness message. So as I'm talking, you're not going to hear me talk about diagnostic criteria. As I said, I'm not going to go through with you and give you and read my slide about what the DSM says to meet this criteria or that criteria. Does not matter to me. You should know it. You should recognize it. You can speak the language if you have to. But that's not really what's helpful to families and kids. It's really not what is helpful to educators, because they don't speak our language. We need to use concrete language that is skill-based. We need to use process-based language that starts to talk about how worry shows up and how we manage it.